My name's Wade Watts. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner. But he died when I was a kid, my mom too. And I ended up here. Sitting here in my tiny corner of nowhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the Oasis. A whole virtual universe. People come to the Oasis for all the things they can do. But they stay because of all the things they can be.
Can you feel this?
Yeah. It's the only place that feels like I mean anything. The Oasis was the brainchild of James Halliday.
Hello. If you're watching this, I'm dead. I created a hidden object, an Easter egg. The first person to find the egg will inherit $500 billion and total control of the Oasis itself.
Who is this Parzival, and how the hell is he winning?
Find him.
This isn't just a game. I'm talking about actual life and death stuff.
The Oasis,
the world's most important economic resource.
it's nothing less than a war for control of the future.
Welcome to the rebellion, Wade.
Like many of you, I only came here to escape. But I found something much bigger than just myself. Are you willing to fight?
Help us save the Oasis.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Brettcast Movie and TV Talk. So I have another sort of movie review here, and for this month I have chose to do it on the movie Ready Player One. This is based on the book of the same name that I read some of, but I never finished it. I don't read much besides comic books, so anyway, I'm not here to compare this movie to the book, as I've watched a video that does that, so I'm just going to give my thoughts on the movie. This is one of my favorite movies, like, ever, but that doesn't mean it's perfect and that I can't pick apart something I like, because I have talked about all 5 of the Transformers movies, and I like those. Also, I'm going away from doing this in a bullet point style and more in a discussion format. Anyway, here we go. Please remember, this is all my opinion. Let's start with the good things, because I found a lot of good things in this movie. First of all, the music is great. All of it. The score and the soundtrack music. The opening of the movie with Van Halen's Jump playing. I love that scene. I think it sets the tone of this movie. A scene in particular I thought was cool is they go to the racetrack and like Parzival tosses something onto the track space and then it just transforms into the DeLorean from Back to the Future. That was a cool scene. I thought they did a great job making the stacks look like a real place you could actually go to. And in general, I think the visual effects are amazing in this movie. Another favorite sequence I love is the entire race sequence. Everything from the amount of carnage and destruction, the T-Rex to King Kong. It's just way cool, and it's shot really good too. I just love it. Spielberg did a great job with that entire action sequence. Then towards the end of the race, Parzival bails out, and then he pretty much forces Artemis to bail out as well because Kong was there and he's gonna crush her anyway. So then they're like lying there, and then Artemis just like shoves her helmet into Parzival and then goes over to her wrecked motorcycle. Like, she doesn't even care about Parzival, which, I mean, she doesn't. As we see in pretty much the next scene in H's workshop, she tells Parzival that he's got to be ready to zero out and lose everything, which she was completely ready to do in that race. I also have to admit that In the real world, at least Wade admits that he thinks Artemis is hot. I liked how in the Oasis that Nolan, the bad guy, his avatar is just like a business guy in a suit because that's what he is in the real world. I thought it was badass that IROC's avatar's entire chest is a skull. It's pretty badass. When they're trying to figure out the clue for the Jade Key, I thought the riddle they used was really well written. After Parzival wins the race and he goes to the Halliday journals, and he pretty much gets mobbed by adoring fans, and then Artemis saves him and gives him the disguise with those Clark Kent glasses. I liked the idea of that glasses. How they hide your identity without changing your appearance, because Clark Kent is just Superman with glasses on, and yet in the Superman movies no one ever suspects anything. When Parzival and Artemis were watching the scene with Halliday and Morrow asks how his date went, and Halliday says the line that I really enjoy, which is she wanted to go dancing, so we watched a movie. Why do I love this line? Because I'm a nerd, and if I were to have ever dated somebody or been in a relationship with a person who is more active than me, that's the kind of thing that I would do and say. That relationship would never last for me. I believe in that same part of the movie we have younger Nolan working under Halliday, and Nolan basically pitches the idea of different tiers of accounts, and it's funny just because the way he says it, you know, it's kind of like how the Xbox accounts are with gold and silver and whatever else. I thought it was pretty funny that he said that. The whole zero gravity dancing that Parzival and Artemis do looks really cool, and I think the way it was shot was done very well too. And so way later in the movie, Parzival has to rally an army to do the last challenge, well, to unlock the force field around the last challenge. So he and some friends go to Planet Doom, and Parzival broadcasts a speech, and in the real world people can see it. And I just loved how much Nolan gave literally no cares about his speech. Like, that one guy comes up to him, you know, watching it on his little tablet screen, and Nolan just swipes it to a different screen, and it was pretty funny. I'll talk more on the Iron Giant a little later, but I did think that it looked cool in the final battle. I also loved how they used Chucky as a weapon, and how there was like a small army of Master Chiefs on the battlefield too. This leads up to my number one favorite part in the movie, which is when Daito uses the glove item from earlier to become the RX-78-2 Gundam. But as much as I love it, it doesn't last very long, which I wish it did. Also, why doesn't he use the Gundam's beam rifle or rocket launcher? He only uses the beam sabers. He could have taken down Mechagodzilla if he had. Lastly, I love how originally when the curator gives Parzival the quarter, it doesn't seem important, but later when Nolan uses the bomb that kills all the avatars, we find the importance and truth of the quarter being that it was an extra life. That's something I really liked. I love how during the this long and sweet moment between Samantha and Wade in the real world, you know, you think they're gonna kiss, and then all of a sudden Samantha's just yelling that she figured out the next clue. I will again admit, I've never watched The Shining, but that whole Shining sequence is one of my top favorite parts of this movie. Now I'm going to go over the things that could have been better, and then questions that I came up with as I watched the movie, but I'm going to do questions first. If you can be anything in the Oasis, why can't you be a giant robot like a sentient one? Why do you have to be some kind of item to be a giant robot for only 2 minutes? If I wanted to be G1 Optimus, what if I wanted to be G1 Optimus Prime? Why do the cars in the Oasis have gas? I know it adds to the realism, but even in car video games today, they don't use gas. The Sixers don't have names, just numbers, so why do all their things just say IOI on it and not some kind of numbers? Is it just like they don't have a name, or when another avatar looks at them, you know, they just have some digits long number? So when Parzival figures out the go backwards thing and does it at the race, why does he have to open the DeLorean's door to be able to see where he's going while going backwards? Does the Back to the Future DeLorean not have a rear mirror? Why does Nolan not care about his company's stock prices? Like, he is running an actual company. You do have to keep your investors happy, right? If Parzival hates IOI, then why does he buy the X1 suit? Isn't IOI the ones that made the X1 suit? So then Parzival doing that contributes directly to the profits of a company he hates. Why does IROC ask for 3 times his normal fee to knock Parzival off the scoreboard? Is it dangerous? Is it time consuming? Again, if someone can have an avatar of an anthropomorphic cat, why can't I be Optimus Prime in the Oasis? Plus it would double as a vehicle that doesn't need, a human type of fuel to run on. Or a human-made fuel. So when Parzival and Artemis are dancing, why does Parzival specifically mention the microfiber crotch inlay on his X1 suit? Does he think something is going to happen between him and Artemis in the Oasis? Throughout the movie, we're shown that the avatars have some form of inventory, and I'm just curious how much stuff they can hold. IROC says at the end of the movie that he's got 10 years of stuff on him, so was that all in his inventory? I know it's a central part to the story, but why does Parzival let love blind him? He was all about getting the keys at first, but once they're at the distracted globe, he just feelings dumps on Artemis. Why does Parzival even agree to meet Nolan if he's not going to make a deal with him? Just so he could tell Nolan how much he hates him face to face? How is it that with all these people around the stacks, none of them saw any of the drones carrying the explosives? How does Nolan think he will get up with blowing up the stacks? This kind of thing would attract the attention of agencies like, I don't know, the FBI, right? Why does H go all slow motion when the blood starts coming from those doors in the Shining sequence? Is that just a Shining thing that happens in the movie? Why does everyone trip and fall when H says that he saw the picture of the girl that Halliday went out on the date with in the Shining sequence? How does IOI have trained SWAT people for the purpose of home invasion? Wouldn't there be some kind of law against invading people's homes and having your own private army? How is IOI able to keep people in prison? Wouldn't that also be against the law and attract the attentions of agencies like the FBI or the CIS or both? Wouldn't it get to a point that enough people would be missing that people would question where all these people went, and having a mass amount of missing people would, as I said, attract the attention of the FBI or the CIA or the CSI? Nolan calls the Oasis the most important economic resource in the world, and why? Don't people still need food and water? Wouldn't that be a little more important than the Oasis? At the start of the movie, they show Wade using an omnidirectional treadmill for walking in the Oasis, and they don't show that when they go to the distracted globe. He was sitting down. So it seems like they need that for walking in the Oasis, but they often forget this detail. Like when IOI had Samantha captured and was in the Oasis, her little cell didn't have one, but when they're in the Oasis in the van, they don't have them either. Towards the end of the movie, they're just using cables or something. So how are they walking in the Oasis without this treadmill thing? Do they have full body sensors or something? Do they have alternate control configurations for walking? I don't really get the point of Nolan using this big ball looking rig while he's in the Oasis. It seems like it's better to be standing up, and you have to have the goggles on for seeing the Oasis since it's virtual reality. So it seems pretty pointless to me. Are there just days or times of the day that nothing is happening on Planet Doom? If it's the best place to get coin, you'd think that stuff is always happening. Speaking of that, how is H able to control the Iron Giant? They don't really explain that one, because he literally becomes the Iron Giant. How? Parzival says many times that he doesn't clan up, but is also a Gunter, and calls it the Gunter clan. So if he's a Gunter, wouldn't that make him part of a clan? How does Parzival just know how to do martial arts all of a sudden? Now to the things that could have been done better. One of the few complaints I had with this movie is that I wish the Iron Giant was a character and not an item. I know that may sound odd, but it could have been a pretty cool idea if the Iron Giant was a self-aware character, as he appears in his own movie. It has to be shown that Nolan is bad and convinced to help Parzival and crew. Parzival shows off all of H's ships and talks about folding space, but we rarely see a need for ships and folding space in the movie, and later during the back and forth between Parzival and Nolan, they mention this again, and this movie still shows no need for them. It's the same with the school thing. They mention the school thing once in the movie, and I remember it was more important in the book because the book starts with him at school. H has a valid point about the real-world identity of Artemis. Like, she could have been a man that, you know, type of thing happens on the online today. And I feel like it would have been worse in the Oasis. I had to side with Artemis when she tells Parzival to never say your real name. He doesn't know her at all, aside from what she lets him see. So it's just a bad idea, not because they're being watched, but just because it's a bad idea in general. So one of the biggest things I found with this movie came from the parts that take place in the real world. My problem is that there doesn't seem to be any form of government in place at all, because IOI can just do what they want. They can imprison people, have their own SWAT team, blow up public property, and so on. I know there were corn syrup wars or something and drought, but like, no one ever said anything about the government falling, because then we'd have total anarchy. But given what this one company can do, it seems possible that the government did fall. They don't do enough to ground the parts of the story that take place in the real world in the real world. It's like the only thing that exists in the world is the Oasis, IOI, the High Fivers, and Morrow. It's not until like the end of the movie when Nolan is banging on the van and has a gun, the police show up and arrest him. Like I said, IOI has done things that should probably be handled by the FBI or the CIA. People have died from being in prison. That's like third-degree murder or something, since Nolan didn't directly kill them. Maybe. I don't know. But, like, Nolan would probably get life in prison regardless of how many lawyers he's got. And the company would get shut down, like, forever, and all his employees would probably get prison or jail time as well and be out of a job and all that. Just the way that IOI is portrayed as, like, not a company or a business, but, like, a corporate overlord. I don't remember if that's how they are in the book, but it doesn't make them appear in the movie like they could be a real company in the real world. So there's my objective discussion for Ready Player One. This is still one of my favorite movies ever, and I just love watching this movie, even though it's not perfect. That's all I have to say, so if you want to add to the conversation, leave a comment below. As always, thanks for listening, and goodbye.